Primary Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on June 4th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.
Welcome back to 755 Forever. And I'm Braves writer David O'Brien from The Athletic. And I'm with my co-host, former Braves reliever Eric O'Flaherty. What's going on, Eric?
What's up, Dave?
Not much, man. Just more of the same from the Braves, unfortunately, for Braves fans and for the Braves themselves during this series against the Nationals, when I thought they really had a chance to make some hay, get back on track, because they were returning both Austin Riley from a 13-game absence for a side strain, and Sean Murphy from a 2-month absence for an oblique strain. So I really thought they might be able to provide a little bit of a spark. Of course, they were also going into the week without Ronald Acuña, who was hurt Sunday at Pittsburgh, season-ending ACL injury. So there's a lot going on. And you just kind of hope that the combination of things might lead the Braves offense to getting back on track against but I will say, a much improved Washington Nationals, especially pitching staff.
Yeah, I was looking at the lineup, the box score from yesterday. And, last year was like, it seemed too good to be true. And this year seems like
too bad
there's no way.
True.
Yeah, like there's no way this keeps up. I was looking up and down the lineup. It's like
you're right.
255, 227, 312 for Ozuna, and then 234. You got a 283 for Albies, and then 236, 143, 196, 250. It felt like last year it was just hitter after hitter hitting, upper 280s or close to 300, and the home run numbers are so much different too. It's kind of shocking, but it can't keep going like this.
It's a great point though, because I remember last year there was a series late in the season against one of the lesser teams, and an Oakland or somebody, when Oakland was really struggling last year, or maybe it was Washington, I'm not sure. But there's a TV right in front of me in the press box, and it has pregame, it has lineups, and it has batting averages and OPSs. And I remember I took a picture of it. I said, look at the difference between these teams. And the Braves numbers were like a college team or a high school team. They were ridiculous. Everybody was hitting 280 to 330 in Acuña's case, but the OPSs were just outrageous. They were all over 800, but several of them were like 900, and Acuña was 1,000. This year, it's the total opposite in that Marcell Ozuna is the only guy producing like he did last year, with the exception of d'Arnaud, who hasn't even had enough at-bats to qualify. But d'Arnaud, besides Ozuna, who's got like the third highest OPS in baseball behind Judge and Ohtani, d'Arnaud is the only other guy on the team with an OPS of 760 or above. He's just above 800. That's it.
It felt like the whole team was 850 last year.
Ozuna's got 16 homers, twice as many homers as anybody else on the team. Matt Olson, who led the majors last year in homers and RBIs, has 8. Ozuna's got 20 more RBIs than the next highest total, Olson. Ozuna's got 49. Olson's got 29. It's crazy, man. And you're right. It can't last, but you keep saying that, and I understand why fans get frustrated when we say that, because they look at the here and now and they go, okay, you keep saying that, but it's lasting.
But we're about to be in June.
We're a third of the way through the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hitting that point where it's like maybe I don't think it does. Like it can't last, but it's hitting that point where it's like, maybe this is just not a good year offensively.
Right. It can't last. But even if they start producing it just like a good but not great rate, they're still going to have really bad numbers at the end of the year where you go, what happened to that team from the previous year? They'd have to go on a run like they had last year. I was talking to Seitzer about this, and he's at a loss too. I mean, this guy's pulling his hair out trying to figure out what to do, what buttons to push. And it's kind of a self-perpetuating thing in that when everybody's slumping, he said, I talked to him. I said, last year it seemed like everybody was raking at the same time. And he said it did seem like that, but it wasn't true because we had 2 or 3 guys that were slumping at any time, but you had 5 or 6 that were absolutely on fire, so it overshadowed the others. And then he said when 2 or 3 of those guys that were hot would get cold, the other guys would pick it up. So they always had somebody going. And this year that hasn't been the case. You've literally had the entire team, with the exception of Ozuna, and then a couple, like a week here by d'Arnaud where he has a 3-homer game, 5 homers in 3 games. A couple of little spurts like that. Olsen looked like he was getting hot again. He had 4 homers in 12 games. Riley started to get hot right before his oblique strain, but it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like a 5-game home run stretch or anything. So, but you just haven't had anybody except Ozuna get hot for any extended period. It's considering how good this offense was last year, how many of the guys are just in their prime, some of them entering their primes.
Yeah.
There's really no excuse for it. You know, you haven't had a ton of injuries. You had the Murphy injury, obviously, and you had Riley out for 2 weeks, but he was struggling for a month and a half before he got hurt. So it's crazy.
He wasn't hitting before he got hurt.
Right.
I mean, I think that hurt a lot, not having him at the front, you know, doing his thing. I think it just changes the whole game. But yeah, it's
totally agree.
It's kind of shocking. You're at the point where, I mean, but it's baseball though. Baseball does stuff like this, and that's why everybody talks about it's 162, and you know, you check in at the end of the year because things like this happen that just don't make sense. You know, I mean, last year it felt like this is fake. You know, this can't keep up, and then they kept it up the whole year.
Yeah,
and so it's like, you know, does it balance out, and you just have this down season where everybody struggles and doesn't put up their numbers, but they're all just too good to. I mean, if everybody was kind of bad, you know, like, all right, we're hitting 265, or yeah, you maybe have a 15-homer year, but there's some guys that hit 30 and you're looking at maybe hitting 12, you know, or batting for 260 for a whole year for a guy that's close to 300 is just, that's baseball.
Yeah, and we talked about it last year, and I think when we said, you know, and quoted several players saying it, as Acuña goes, so go we. Last year when he was having a historic season, and people were like, yeah, true, but not really, because so many other guys in the lineup are killing it too. But we're seeing this year, I think, because Acuña came out of the block struggling, and I think what Acuña did last year cannot be overstated, the importance of it to the lineup, because he kept pitchers on edge from before they threw the first pitch. Yep. They had to be on there. They had to come out, you know, with anxiety. If you're a lesser pitcher, going, okay, I cannot throw this guy a hittable pitch on the first pitch. I got to come out of my A game from the first pitch. And Acuña, half the time, would lead off with a home run, it seemed like, or
double or single, or steal base. Like, it was just chaos right away.
Right. Single, and all of a sudden he's at second or third base, you know, 2 pitches later because he stole 73 bags.
Yeah.
So constantly putting pressure on pitchers. That undoubtedly left a lot more hittable pitches for the guys behind him. There's no doubt about that. And this year, that wasn't the case. I mean, Acuña came out, and we talk about the strikeout rate. The team strikeout rate had the whiff percentage, especially swing and miss percentage, was the biggest jump in the NL from last year to this year. Biggest jump. The strikeout rate, they went from 5th lowest, I think, last year to 9th highest this year. A lot of that is at the feet of Acuña, because last year he had the career best numbers, career best numbers in strikeout, lowest whip percentage, lowest strikeout percentage. This year he reverted to his previous worst numbers with no explanation. I mean, we talked to him. You asked him.
I think we got our explanation, though. Yeah, like I think a lot of times when a player's playing,
knee was bothering him,
something wasn't functioning right, you know, and that led to an injury. That's my thought on it. Is when you see a guy really struggling, a lot of times you don't feel the pain right away, but you're not moving right, you know, or you're favoring something, or something's a little off, and then the injury comes. Yeah, like a lot of times guys wind up going on the disabled list or the injured list, and they've already been having like a rough go, and then the injury pops up, and it's like that was kind of there and about to happen the whole time based on the way you were moving and doing something. So I think that kind of, for me, that explained a lot of it. Was like that knee was about to go the whole time.
And you could say that he was still stealing bases at a high rate, but we all know that knee injury, that particular, is more lateral movement than straight ahead is really not the problem with that. It's lateral movement and decelerating.
And when he decelerates at stealing bases, he slides.
Yeah, and you head first.
Yep.
He doesn't slide feet first ever.
Right.
You pointed out on the last show that you noticed when him decelerating, he was still
Just
kind of
ginger.
kind of shaky on that, kind of being careful with that rather than
Yep.
just planting and going. I don't know, man. We're all amateurs on this, but I think it's a combination of things we talked about. We're not going to know until if Acuña comes out and says, but we talked to him yesterday, and he was really candid about a lot of things, like crying the other day about this until he saw his boys were laughing, his two young sons, kind of brought him some perspective. But he didn't mention again, gave him the chance, and he didn't say anything about it bother him at all, even though he missed a couple of weeks of spring training when he had the meniscus irritation in the right knee, the surgically repaired right knee. Then he fouled a ball off the left knee in Miami. But he came out looking not like himself at the start of the season, and I think that was due to missing so much of spring training. And also, I've talked about this, he didn't have the normal offseason of a Ronald Acuña where he posts those IG workouts that he does all the way till spring training starts. Instead, and this is no knock on him, they have people pulling at him. He won all these awards. He plays winter ball. He has people poo-pooing that, saying, I wish he wouldn't play winter ball. He did that for 1 month, but he quit in early January because he had all these obligations in the States to all these award ceremonies. And I mean, he went to Vegas for the players thing. He went to Atlanta for the Brace Fest. He went to New York for the BBWA big gala. And he went to some others too. Plus he had some commercial for the first time. You can't criticize a guy for taking some commercial opportunities that arise when you're the MVP and one of the most visible, one of the few visible players that teams, corporations want to tie their wagon to. So he did a few of those shoots and all that. So I'm just saying he didn't have the normal offseason, and that's not a knock on him at all.
Yeah,
that's
and
him.
He could probably ride a unicycle, for 20 minutes a day and still, he's so talented and still hit 50 bombs and stay healthy. But
normal spring training would have helped.
Yeah, but when both ACLs go, it just tells me it's like just genetically something, whatever allows him to move the way he does is a little loose, and they were both just bound to pop on him. Like I don't think there's anything.
Yeah, well,
you can't even look into work ethic or any of that with when
not
both
at all.
ACLs go.
I'm not at all working because the guy works as hard as anybody. I think, and in that regard, I think, like he said, there can be. He said yesterday we talked to him, his first interview since the diagnosis of a complete tear, and he was great, man. I mean, he was really candid. He was thoughtful. He wasn't bitter. He was upbeat. He's going into this in a lot better mental frame of mind than he was the last one because he was terrified the last time. Am I ever going to be the same player or not? He knows exactly what's ahead of him this time. He knows that he came back last year,
Won an MVP.
Even though he struggled in the first year back, the second year back he was better than he's ever been.
Yeah,
he said, Maybe I want to come back better than ever from this. And he said, sometimes these are blessings in disguise. Well, who knows? Maybe his right knee is stronger than it ever was, and his legs are stronger because of all the work that he did on it, rehabbing it. Exercises that, like when you have Tommy John, you do exercises for your elbow to strengthen your shoulder, and you're in better shape than ever when you come back, when pitchers come back, and they're throwing harder, and it's because they've done so much other stuff. Well, he's doing stuff that he never would have done for his legs, and now he's going to be doing it again because of the other one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'd be more if I think I'd be more concerned long term if he tore the same one twice.
Right, exactly, because it wouldn't be as stable.
Yeah,
I think there's a very good chance he could come back better than ever because of the work that he's going to do to strengthen that other one. At the same time, he's going to be working again on the right one. He might come back faster than ever. If you look at guys like Frank Gore, NFL running back, well, nobody cuts more and sometimes on artificial turf than running backs. He's a big one. He came back he did both ACLs at University of Miami. A lot of people thought he'd be done. And he came back and was incredible in the NFL. So if he could do it, if a guy like that can do it, there's no reason that Acuña couldn't do it. And again, he's never favored the right knee since in 2023. He was running more than ever. So I'm not worried about him long term.
It just sucks. It
just sucks because he's losing basically 3 seasons of his career in his prime because he's going to come back next year and he's probably not going to be himself until the year after. I did think he made one really good it was really good to hear him say it is I asked him, has he learned anything from the last time about when he came back? Did he learn anything from that first year back, 2022, that he'll apply this time? And he said, patience. That's the most important thing. So when he comes back, last year he was pushing it. He wanted the Braves to know, I'm ready. So when they said, are you ready to go up? He said, yeah, he was ready. This time he said, I'm going to leave it entirely up to them. to tell me when I'm ready to come up. Because I said, I don't know. I said, I know there's no timetable, but are you aiming for next year opening day? Because if you look at how fast he came back from the last one, it's not really a typical, but it's more like 9, 10 to 12 months. But but last year he came back in under 10 months, a few weeks faster than they had anticipated. So I just looked at, okay, 10 months from now, he could be back for opening day, right? So I asked him, is that in your head, opening day? And he didn't even hesitate. He said, I'm going to do all the rehab. I'm going to make sure I do everything right. And he goes, and I'm going to come back when they tell me I'm ready. And that's it. And I think that's the best attitude you can have. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, you go through the process of rehabbing an injury, and especially a major one. You know, it's not like a flared up tendon or something. I mean, you got torn ACL. You go through that process, 10 months of rehabbing every day. The last thing in the world you want to do is have to do it again. And he does. But you go through it once and you're like, here's what I did wrong. You know, maybe I pushed this, because he had a few times where it's kind of bothering him. But
he had to have it drained. It was irritating. Yeah, I'm sure he didn't want to do that again.
Yeah, and every time that pops up, you're like, please don't send me back to the training room for another 10 months. And I feel for him, because it's such a mental grind to watch everybody playing, and you're just riding the recumbent bike for 20 minutes, and you're like, I'm getting nowhere. And you look at the big picture, and opening day, maybe I'll be ready. It's still 9 months away, 7 months away, 6 months away, and you go through the process, and you're feeling like, I don't know how I'm ever going to be the same again. But the beauty of it is he knows. He went through it, did the whole thing, battled that first season back, and then went out and won an MVP. I mean, he's going to have the best perspective on it because he's already been through it. Like when me and Johnny both had Tommy John at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm like, every day, this hurts, that hurts. I'm worried about this. Can I straighten it?
Yeah.
Am I ever going to pitch again? Am I going to be the same? Am I going to get another contract? Where am I going to I'm worried about all this stuff. Johnny was just like shrugging, like, it'll be fine. Because he'd already had it and been through it, come back and been an all-star. We would try to straighten our elbows. I'm being all careful with it. Johnny just throw his elbow down. Like, yeah, it's good. So when you go through it once or twice, I think you learn a lot to just trust the process and be patient.
So that's going to help him imminently. I mean, so much. I think I'm just looking ahead thinking of a realistic return date. And I know the Braves are never going to say this, because they said last year, the doctors told him, you're not going to re-injure it. You can play on it. You're not going to re-injure it. But there's going to be soreness. It's just what you can deal with. Well, I think after last year, after the team seeing what a diminished, or 2022, what a diminished Acuña it was, and after Acuña, he didn't want to come out and be 75% of himself. No. I think that if they and he decide, it would be better to wait 2 more months and get closer to it. Yeah. It's not going to surprise me if his return is closer to the All-Star break than it is to opening day.
I mean, there's no worse
a year instead of 10 months.
When you're in the game, like I used to get Ryan Howard out a lot. And when you're like 60, 70%, and all of a sudden these guys that you usually have their number, as a hitter, are just blowing his doors off, or you're missing pitches, like it sucks to play in the big leagues. And it's almost impossible to play in the big leagues at anything under 100%. Unless you're his type of talent. Yeah. But you still have to feel that feeling of like, this guy shouldn't get me out, or this guy shouldn't get a hit off me. And I remember I was coming back, and Ryan Howard just hitting lasers off me. And I was like, man, this is a sign that things aren't back yet,
Yeah.
From groan-worthy dad jokes to patching up skinned knees, your dad is one of a kind. This Father's Day, give him a gift that is guaranteed to take him to his happy place. Omaha Steaks. Order mouth-watering gift packages starting at just $89 when you go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code FOREVER at checkout. Each package is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee. Show your dad the love he deserves with a gift as unforgettable as he is. Visit omahasteaks.com, promo code FOREVER at checkout.
Dave Lizotte here with another Gwinett Stripers report. The Braves AAA affiliate entered Thursday's day game in Norfolk with a 25-28 record, 12th place in the 20-team International League. Unconventional starting pitching has been the headline for the Stripers in this series so far against the reigning AAA national champion Norfolk Tides. On Tuesday, former closer Grant Holmes made his first start in his 66th career appearance with Gwinett. Continuing to stretch out as a long reliever, Holmes was pressed into starting duty and thrived in his longest outing since 2019. He threw 5 innings with just 1 run on 1 hit and struck out 7 in a 4-2 victory. It was Holmes' 4th straight appearance of 3+ innings. Wednesday was even more unusual, with veteran utility infielder David Fletcher making the first start of his 10-year career. In only his 5th career appearance on the mound, all of which have come this month, Fletcher kept Norfolk off balance with his knuckleball and struck out 6, including baseball's top prospect Jackson Holliday, over 5 2-run innings. The Stripers won the game 5-2. Offensively, veteran infielder Yuli Gurriel entered play Thursday, riding a team-best 17-game on-base streak, hitting .288 with 7 extra base hits and an .804 OPS in that span. Gwinett also added former Oakland and Cleveland outfielder Ramon Laureano to the roster on Wednesday, shortly after he signed a minor league deal with the Braves. Laureano went 1 for 3 with a run scored in his debut. The Stripers continue their 2-week road trip to Norfolk and then to Durham through June 9th. Gwinnett's next home series is against Nashville, running June 11th to the 16th. Tickets are on sale now at GoStripers.com.
So there was the Acuña thing yesterday. We have the pregame with him, and he says this team can win the World Series without me. And I was just like, oh, man. It's just like, you don't even want to think about what in this guy's head.
Yeah.
What would happen if they did it again? I mean, but right now, that's about the last thing in the world you think is going to happen the way they're playing right now. But
yeah,
he has this pregame, great, positive, upbeat press conference for a guy that's about to go under the knife for the second time. And then the Braves go out and lay an egg again. They've had back-to-back games where they started a rookie who, Schwellenbach pitched well, man. He impressed me. He was every bit what I thought he'd be. He made one mistake that he had to really pay for, the home run ball. He was set up on the outer edge, threw it over the middle. Lane Thomas crushed it for a 3-run homer. That was in the 5th inning. Till then, he'd given up nothing. He got out of 2 jams. I was really impressed because not only does he come out throwing hard, I mean, he could hit 97.5, but he's got 5 pitches or 4 pitches that he threw in that game, and they were all good pitches. He passed
the test.
He's not a kid, man. This guy can come.
No.
I think he's ready, and I think we'll see him. They kept him, so that means he's going to make another start. He's going to get another chance.
You see the 5 and then the mistake versus you can have a guy come up and throw 5 or 6 and only give up 1, but it's ugly. Right. A lot of line drives to the track. Like they watched him pitch, and that's what's great about good major league coaches is they don't look strictly at results. They watch how the game was going, and they saw that. And for me, that's the biggest test. Can you come up and compete and pitch like you belong? And if you do that, we want to see it again. To me, he's the most impressive one of the guys they've shuffled in for the 5th and 6th spot, including Smith-Shawver. I love Smith-Shawver's ceiling. It's still great, but he's only thrown 4 or 5 years. He's on the IL right now. But I thought he looked better than Smith-Shawver looked, even though Smith-Shawver gave up no runs in 4 1/3 at Chicago. This guy's just got better command. I mean, more polished.
Yeah. And you look at his numbers in the minors. He doesn't walk people. He walked one the other day that was like, whoa, he walked somebody. But I just didn't think that he was at all awed by the environment, too, for a guy who's pitched 2 games above high A, and those were in double A. So he's never pitched anything remotely like this, except for college. I mean, but he wasn't like in the College World Series like Waltrip was, which is big crowds and TV and all that. He was at Nebraska,
And that's the number one thing you want to see is you want to see a guy come up and compete. And so if he would have come up and walked 6 and put up 5 shutty somehow, that's more alarming than making 1 bad pitch after a ton of good ones.
I was really impressed with him. But they had him pitch 2 nights ago, and he gives up 3 runs, which last year's team, that's nothing. They win that game.
8-3 win.
Yeah, exactly.
And they
lose what, 3-1, or what was it 2 nights ago, 3-1, 3-2? They lose that game because he gets no offensive support whatsoever. And then last night they give Ray Kerr a second start. He's been a reliever basically his professional career since, he started some early in his career, but he's been a reliever. And he just pitched so well in a couple of long relief appearances that they decided, he's stretched out. He's throwing 60-some pitches in a relief. Let's start him. And he's made 2 starts, one on the road to Pittsburgh and then one last night. I still think right now he's more suited to relieving because he's got 4 pitches, but the other one's a little bit ragged. And those 2 that he uses as a reliever are pretty damn sharp.
Yeah.
He was impressive in his relief appearances. I think if you make the move to him starting, it should be done in the offseason and all of spring training rather than in the middle of the season go, okay, you're starting tonight, mentally and all that. I just don't know that he was ready for that. But his stuff is nice, man. He's got great stuff.
Yeah, and that's what gets him excited. It's a tall ask to, especially when you've been preparing as a reliever and, you have that day where you come in and you didn't even know you were going to pitch and they didn't have time to prepare for you for that, and everybody's seeing you for the first time. But, I mean, it's nice as a reliever. If you got 2 good pitches, you're good. You try to go through that lineup a few times when they've seen your stuff. It's
right.
You got to have that third pitch, and you got to be able to make pitches. But his stuff's plenty good. I think it's just a tall ask to – I think they like the way he threw the ball, though. Wanted to give it a shot. Yes. I don't think there's anything wrong with giving it a shot.
Yeah, Snit loved his stuff. He commented on it again last night. He thought he pitched well.
Yeah.
But, yeah, unlike the night before when Schwellenbach looked completely, I mean, as comfortable as any prospect's going to look in his major league debut. He looked comfortable. I thought Kerr, who's pitched plenty in the majors with San Diego and the Braves, but he gets a start at home in front of a big crowd. It's not on the road at Pittsburgh like the other one was, and he's had time to think about it a little bit because he knew he was going to be starting this game unless they needed him in a relief appearance between then. And that would have only been an emergency. He knew he was starting this game, so he had time to think about it. When he flew to Pittsburgh, he didn't even know till he landed there the day before that he was starting. They told him to go there. They told him the day before, you're going to be starting tomorrow. So this time he had all week to think about it. And he filled up the box score. He had 3 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts.
Yeah. 1
wild pitch, 2 hit by pitches. And they were stealing all over the place against him.
Yeah.
That team runs that Nationals team's got a lot of young legs, and they run all over the place. They had 13 steals in the series to the Braves 2. And one of those was late last night for the Braves. And Murphy threw out a guy when he had a chance early in the game, but really Kerr was not giving him much chance at all because he's slow to the plate, which as a reliever, when nobody's getting on base against him, it's okay. But when he's walking guys and hitting guys with pitches, they get on, and they were just taking off.
Well, you're out there a lot longer for them to kind of get their reads too.
Right.
But
right.
That kind of happens.
And
it's such a different feeling starting. I mean, when I would do rehab games, they'd ask me if I wanted to start, and sometimes you'd have to because it's like you're going to do this, and then you got to get back and get on the flight with the team, and there's a day off, and you're getting activated after this one.
Right.
So they'd have you start and throw the first inning, and I was more uncomfortable starting a minor league game than I would have been coming in bases loaded, no outs in Philly. Just because it's such a foreign feeling to just jog out there and start the game and nothing's happened yet. You're used to chaos and not having time, and you go through this whole warm-up routine. It's like I kind of wanted the last few times I did it, I just went through the game as a reliever, and then I went out to the game 10 minutes before it started. I wasn't going through this whole starter routine of sitting around on a couch the whole day. It's totally foreign to you when you aren't used to it or you've been doing it a different way. And then make it a big league game that you're starting with, at Truist with 30, 40,000 in the stands. It's a weird feeling.
So even though he tried to make it normal at Pittsburgh by running in from the bullpen,
it's hard. Yeah.
And what you're saying, I think it's a lot. I think it's in some ways like making your debut again, doing it as a starter because they announce you at home. You have warm-up music. They announce your name. You're in the bullpen warming up. It's just totally different than as a reliever. You're coming in. And so anyway, I'm not going to I think he's got a bright future with the Braves as a reliever or a starter. But I think the starting thing, realistically, I think should happen in the offseason and spring training. But who knows? I mean, for a team trying to contend, I don't think you can afford to run him out there and have him stumble each time. But if they think, if they give him one more shot and he does it, okay, we'll see.
Yeah,
but
if he gets a good one, I think you're good. Then you cruise from there. But you got to get that. The only guy I've seen really do that and do it really well was that year Medlin started in the pen and then wound up starting for, I don't know, 4 months worth. But it doesn't happen much. It's a tough
he was a
transition.
rarity. He was a rarity.
Yeah.
And it should be noted, one of the 2-run double that he gave up was kind of a funky swing. Snit, they tried to dismiss it entirely, call it a check swing or unusual swing, whatever. But it was all you could do on that pitch to keep it in fair territory. I mean, it was a good piece of hitting, I thought. But anyway, So we'll see. It was a mixed bag, but I love his stuff. And I think Schwellenbach and him both are parts of this team's future, or good trade pieces if they wanted, because the other team's going to want them too. Those are good arms. And Schwellenbach, you don't trade. That's a guy that you look for in your rotation going forward. Really,
he looked like he belonged. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you almost wish pitchers were still hitting, because between him and Fried, you'd have two of the best hitting pitchers in the majors, if not the best.
He can hit too?
He was a shortstop at Nebraska.
Okay. All right.
He only closed late in his career at Nebraska, I think the last year, but he was like a 300 hitting shortstop at Nebraska. Legit.
Athletes.
And he went over to see him. Did you see him field that ball to the right side?
Yeah.
Totally comfortable. He's like, I got this. I mean, yeah.
Well, that probably speaks to some of the comfort he had.
Right.
You know,
I mean, and you look at him, he's built like a position player. He's not like lanky, narrow pitcher. He's put together.
Hey listeners, Tim Shovers here, producer of the podcast. Every week you hear the injury report brought to you by Gerber and Holder. Today they bring you the trivia question, and it's a good one. Since 2022, who has played a greater percentage of games for their team? Is it Matt Olson or is it Freddie Freeman? Email in the correct answer to 755foreverpodcast at gmail.com. Again, 755foreverpodcast at gmail.com. Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman, who has played a greater percentage of games for their team? Two first basemen who will forever be linked in Braves lore. This trivia question is brought to you by Gerber and Holder, attorneys who only represent injured workers. Just like these Braves, if you've been hurt on the job, go to www.gerberholderlaw.com. That's gerberholderlaw.com.
That was promising. The Braves offense, not promising, but as we've talked about ad nauseum, I mean, I talked to Seitz about it, and like I said, he's at his wits' end trying to get this turned around. He said, we've gone through this. If you look back, and he was right, the team started slow most every year.
Yep.
It was only last year that they were they came out of the blocks differently. But the two previous years, they really did start slow. And then they got going as they got to late May and early June. So he's hoping the warm weather and all that. Okay, that's an optimistic spin on it. But they have started slow. It's just last year, they just crushed all norms, and they were so good. They set the bar so high. And like Darno said, every team goes through this at some point in the season. The Braves is a little bit longer than you want any slump to last. But he said last year we went through it in September, October, unfortunately, and they did. They didn't hit in September and October. He goes, I'd rather go through it now, grow, and then move forward than go through it again like they did last year.
It's all timing. Like it's tough to watch, but yeah, you'd rather go into the postseason hot. That's all that matters. I mean, you've seen team after team after team, wild card teams, and now with the whole league getting in, it just comes down to who's hot when the playoffs start.
You just got to get in.
Unfortunate thing about baseball is you can't just will your way to win. You can make arguments for chemistry and a lot of things, but if you go into it off, you can want it as bad as you want. It's not like you can just make this decision to be better. And you can't do as many things in baseball to make up for not hitting. You go out and make plays, but if we're not hitting, we're not hitting.
And how many times did we hear him say last year, hitting is contagious? All the time. Well, the opposite is true too.
Yeah.
And I think that the longer this slump goes on, the harder it is for them to get out of, because as Seitz said, they start pressing. And how does that show up and manifest itself in chasing? The chase rates are up because each guy wants to be the guy to get that hit with two on base or a runner on base in scoring position, and they're not getting those hits. They were 0 for 7 runners in scoring position last night. Remember, early in the year, they were scoring all those runs late in the game. Reverse of last year when they came out pounding people in the first inning. They were scoring late in the game early in the year for some reason. Well, now they're not doing that either. But guys are pressing, and you can see it, other than Ozuna, who's gone up there and relaxed like he always does. But other guys are trying so hard to be the guy, and they're striking out in big situations again and again. And I think that's kind of self-perpetuating thing this kind of snowball has built with this. It's in the back of their heads if it's not in the front of their heads.
Yeah, you just feel way more pressure. It's like hitting runners on second and third, one out, you just slap a sac fly. When the guy in front of you strikes out, now it's like, we can't afford to, now I have to get a hit. But if that guy in front of you just bloops a single or something, and you got runners on first and third, one out, it's like it's such a more comfortable situation in at bat. Now you got, if I don't get a hit, we don't score. And everybody's falling into that position because the guy in front of them's not getting it and they're trying to pick each other up. But the mentality just changes so much with pressure and not getting the job done. They just need a few guys to get hot, and I think everybody will.
Yeah, I think what they need, they got Oakland coming in. It's not the same Oakland doormat that it was last year at all, but it's still a team that they should beat. Said the same thing about the Nationals. They lost 3 out of 4 games and scored 9 runs total. But I think it's just going to take a couple of games with a couple of big hits, a bases clearing double, a 3-run homer, back to that kind of thing from somebody other than just Ozuna. And I think it'll trigger it. I think they'll start going, and we'll look back at this and go, remember when everybody wanted them to fire Snit, fire Seitzer? The takes on Twitter and X, right now, I shouldn't be surprised, but the fire Seitzer. I'm like, really? All of a sudden, everything he did to make them the best offense in baseball last year is out the window? He's forgot how to coach? And that's just irrational. Why would you fire Seitzer?
Well, there's only so much you can do. And I would
as a
guess
hitting coach.
I would guess nothing's changed about his approach. I guess he's the exact same guy that got him where they were.
And if you did that, you're an organization that makes moves just to do something at the behest of fans who are pissed off. You're making moves,
and that's
just
the worst.
To make them. Like
that's the absolute worst.
Like when Snitker got demoted to AAA when he was the third base coach and Freddie was the manager, and Frank Wren felt like they had to do something after the season, so they demoted Snitker. That was, so. You don't just make coaching changes. Unfortunately, Alex Anthopoulos is well established. He's not going to do that. This would have to go on a lot longer for this to for
couple years. You're looking at a sample of 6 years of being amazing.
Right.
You got 2 bad months. It's 2 months. April, May.
And it's really a month and a half because they started out great the first 2 weeks. So we'll see. I know people get tired of hearing the same things, but they want answers. But I'm qualified to give them answers,
Yeah.
If the people we're talking to, the players, the hitting coach, the manager, they don't have answers. I know people will go, well, we got to have answers. Well, okay, there are no answers. It just happens. It is baseball, whether you want to hear that or not. It is baseball.
Yeah, and it's one thing if you're kind of hearing some rumblings in the clubhouse.
Right. I'm not hearing that.
Shit gets around a little bit, and there starts being some things said, and it's like, these guys hate playing for this manager, and then you see them getting fired, and then a team takes off. These guys love playing for Snit. They love their coaching staff. They're just not hitting, and it's part of baseball is just not riding that wave.
I will say Ron Washington's absence and EY's absence, Eric Young's absence, I think we have probably seen that on the basis because the Braves are not a good base running team this year, but they haven't been getting on base enough lately to even judge it. But I think there is something to that probably. And it didn't help losing Wash is just his spirit. We talked about how important he was to this team. And he made it fun, helps guys relax, helps them get fired up. And I think that did do something, losing Ron Washington. You can't just keep lopping off pieces of your chemistry and expect it to be exactly the same. That's not to say the chemistry is bad, because it's not. It's still great chemistry. But you lose Freddie and you lose Dansby. But then Wash, it might have been the biggest blow as far as chemistry in the clubhouse, because he talked to everybody, not just the infielders.
Every day.
Everybody loved having him around. And EY was great with the outfielders. So you replaced a big chunk of your coaching staff that had been exactly the same for a lot of years. So it's inevitable that's going to do something to the chemistry. It's going to take a while to get it back if you ever get that part of it back. Wash was a rare individual. I'd never seen anybody quite like him, and everybody says that about him. So you can't just replace it.
It's so hard to bring that every day. It's so hard to be.
Without looking fake.
I think it's easier when you're a coach because you don't have your own performance weighing on you. But still, to just show up, because everybody's got shit going on in their life. Everybody didn't sleep last night. Whatever it is, they just fight with your wife. I didn't sleep. The kids got me up, or some other health. Like, everybody's got stuff going on. And the people that can just show up every day and be exactly the same and bring that, it's invaluable. Like, you can't put a value on it. It's hard to do.
All right. Well, we will talk again after the Braves have a 3-game series against the Oakland A's starting tonight at Truist Park. And that's it. We appreciate you guys watching and listening to us. 7:55 forever. We are out. Thanks.